Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. I was out yesterday, could not be on with you live because I was having some major dental work done. I will not yesterday. Well, I was out yesterday because the day before I had major dental work done. I will not go into the gory details. I am frankly thankful to God, especially, and pleasantly surprised that I have recovered very, very quickly. I'm in no pain, a little bit of soreness, but no pain really. No swelling, a little bit that you may not even be able to detect it because I barely can, but I do have a little bit of swelling. But yeah, so I'm back and rip-roaring, ready to go. Thank you all for your prayers because believe me, prayer makes all the difference in the world. Major dental work, won't go into the details, but very uneventful. Very routine in how everything proceeded, even though they tell you all the complications and all the issues that could go wrong. I was offered being put under in order to do it, but I said, no, I prefer not to do that. I prefer to be awake when this is happening, and I'll just deal with the discomfort. They nub you from the pain, but I'll just deal with the discomfort of having your mouth gape wide open and dig it in there. I have to admit, folks, when the dentist, he brought out a tray of instruments that was sitting right in front of me. And when I saw those instruments, I thought to myself, boy, these look like the tools of a torturer. I thought maybe I made a bad decision to be awake during this, but it went fine. Look. I mentioned the last time I was on with you, this cult of the Democrat Party. I mentioned 4 things and I added a 5th. So I want to just quickly go over that with you. I'm not going to go into details about these. But again, I think this is the way we got to think about the Democrat Party now. This is the way we got to think about the left now. And every day it gets confirmed. I said, number 1, racial obsession. Number 2, sexual perversion. And of course, include with that, there's no definition of gender and gender's fluid and all this nonsense. That's all sexual perversion. Number 3, earth worship. Mother Earth, and we got to save the planet. Number 4, the rejection of God's truth and of Judeo-Christian values and principles upon which this nation was founded. But here's number 5, which I forgot to mention, which is tyrannical governmental power over people to control everything and everybody. That's what the cult wants. And we saw that during COVID. If you had any doubts about that, you saw that during COVID, how quick they were to seize absolute power over people and to use it in the most egregious, the most heartless, the most cruel ways. Think about all the people who were separated from their loved ones who were sick in hospitals, in nursing homes, and you were told, well, you can't go in, you can't see them, and many people died alone. I'm convinced that the number of deaths was increased because of this weird social distancing that became isolation for sick people, because even the medical community admits the more family you have around you, the more support you have around you, the better your chances are of recovery from any kind of serious illness. And they did just the opposite and went with isolation. Cuomo is about to run for mayor of New York. How in the world could anybody support that man for mayor of New York when he basically executed a bunch of elderly people by essentially isolating them and then sending people into their midst with COVID? I mean, the policies were abominable. And the things he did were monstrous. But of course, he's one of these elitists who thinks they can do no wrong. So those are the 5 things: racial obsession, sexual perversion, earth worship, rejection of the truth of God's word and Judeo-Christian values and heritage, and governmental power over everything and everybody. Those are the 5 pillars of the Democrat cult. Those are the 5 pillars of the Democrat cult. Which is why they are one of the reasons why they're so upset with Elon Musk. Not the only reason, not even the essential reason, but I'm going to get to that in just a second. Here's what a true public servant, a politician who is not self-absorbed, self-obsessed, personally ambitious, essentially, because look, there are Republicans with the same attitude. Now, thank God, not many. But in terms of the obsession with power, there are a whole lot of Republicans suffering from that illness. But I have 8 qualities of the true public servant. Number 1, a commitment to the Constitution and to limited government, because that's what the Constitution was designed to do, to limit the power of government, a commitment to that. That means that person is going to be concerned about debt. They're going to be concerned about spending. They're going to be concerned about fraud, waste, and abuse. They're going to be concerned about trying to over-regulate the American people, because they're committed to this, to not only to the letter, but the spirit of the Constitution. They take their oath seriously. Number 2, the rule of law. The understanding that you cannot have a civilized and productive society if you do not have the rule of law. The rule of law applies to how people enter our country. The rule of law applies to how we deal with criminals who prey on other people, who rob other people, harm other people, hurt other people, kill other people, steal their property, and so forth. The rule of law must be enforced for the benefit of all of us. Because when the rule of law breaks down, what happens? We have to take it upon ourselves to basically execute justice ourselves. That's what ultimately happens. The society degenerates into chaos. Number 3, individual liberty. That liberty is not collective. There's no liberty for a group of people per se. There is individual liberty. Now, and as when with slavery, there may be a group of people who are all denied individual liberty. But once you lift that denial, once you liberate those people, you allow those people to have liberty. That liberty is no longer collective. That liberty is, even though the captivity was collective, the liberty is individual. Then it's up to each person to make of that liberty what he or she will. Liberty is not collective. And sadly, I think that's a lesson that even conservatives have forgotten. Liberty is individual. It is the individual's rights. All persons, that's what the founding fathers meant when they said all men. They were talking about all human beings. They weren't just talking about males. They were talking about all human beings are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, that's just the way people talked in those days. And if you question that, let there be no doubt that George Washington certainly didn't consider himself to be the superior of Martha, and Martha with no rights and him with all rights. I mean, he knew better than that. And most of the founding fathers with their wives, they understood that. So, but liberty is individual. It is not collective. It is individual. There may be a mass denial of individual liberty of particular people, like women couldn't vote. But once you lift that, then it's up to each woman to decide what she's going to do with that liberty. Because what the attempt to impose a collective standard on all to try to raise them to the level that you want them to arrive at in the pursuit of or in the exercise of their liberty is where you begin to get into tyranny, because now you get into socialism, where you got to impose things. That's what DEI is all about. It is a denial of individual liberty. It is an attempt to impose a kind of collective liberty. We will have 3.2 Japanese and 4.2 blacks and 1.2 women and 5.2. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's not individual liberty, because it denies the individual the ability to say, let's see, what do I want to do? What do I need to do in order to achieve it? How hard am I willing to work? How much am I willing to discipline myself and forego other things that might interfere with what I want to achieve in life? It is a matter of individuals, not a matter of collectives. But this is the true servant of America, the person who truly wants to serve the country. And then fourth, so you got the Constitution, you got limited government, you got the rule of law. Well, really, individual liberty is number 4. You got number 5, a free market economy. That's what, in part, has made America great. And by the way, a free market economy is supported by individual liberty. And then you've got private property, the recognition that individuals have a right to own property, And when they own that property, they are sovereign over it, and they have a right to do with it what they will. They have a right to exclude others from it if they want to. They have a right to invite who they want to use it. They will have a right to use it however they wish. And again, the cult doesn't respect any of this. What I'm giving you right now, the cult doesn't respect any of this. But this is what the true servant of America, the true patriot, this is the way they think. And then the Judeo-Christian values and heritage upon which all of this is built. They understand that this is all built on this notion that rights and liberty come from Almighty God, and that those rights and that liberty are not for the purpose of being libertine and not for the purpose of licentiousness, but it's for the purpose of achieving the highest and best that your gifts, your talents, and your ability can master. That's what it's for. It is not for sexual perversion. It is not for let's all get high, let's all get drunk, let's all smoke marijuana, let's all get on cocaine, see, the true servant of the country doesn't want any of that because it contradicts those Judeo-Christian values and principles upon which everything else I just shared with you rests. And then here's the final thing, that they want to serve the people, not themselves. They want to serve the people, not themselves. I believe that's 8. Number 1, Constitution. Number 2, limited government. Number 3, rule of law. Number 4, individual liberty. Number 5, free market economy. Number 6, private property. Number 7, Judeo-Christian heritage and values. And number 8, to serve the people. None of that is in the Democrat Party anymore. That's all. None of that is there. They're not in it to serve people. They're in it to serve themselves. Let me give you a perfect example. It's a perfect segue. We just learned this week that those poor astronauts, God bless them, that are stranded right now at the space station, were offered a ride home by Elon Musk under the Joe Biden administration. And Joe Biden turned him down. Now, you've heard me say repeatedly, these folks don't care about you. They don't care about me because they don't care about people. Now, again, how would you feel if you were sent into space for 8 days and 8 days became 9 months? After being repeatedly told that you were going to be brought home, and then you are brought home. Now, folks, these are some brave people, and they're committed, and I trust that there will not be any lasting mental impact on them, psychological impact on them. I did hear one astronaut say that it's a privilege to be in space. And on one level, they probably are hoping that maybe they'll break the record for having stayed in space longer than anyone else has. I think Russia has the record right now. But I'm sorry. Excuse me, folks. I cannot believe that their families, that they, after being told they would be back in 8 days, now 9 months into it, on under tremendous psychological pressure, because I'm sure the mind says, well, you know what, maybe you'll never get back. Maybe you're going to die up here. I mean, I can't imagine. Elon Musk offered to bring them home, and Joe Biden said no. Now, why would he say that? Because they're not interested in serving people. They're interested. Look, in the same way that Barack Obama talked to the president of Mexico when they were holding a Marine who got twisted up and ended up crossing the Mexican border and had guns in his car that were perfectly legal in the United States of America. He had perfect right to have them, but when he crossed the Mexican border, he became a criminal, and they arrested him and held him. And Barack Obama had a talk with the Mexican president and never even mentioned this Marine that he knew was being held. Joe Biden brought, what's her name, Brittany Griner or something like that, the basketball woman, the lesbian black woman. Oh, he got her home from Russia right away after she was arrested for having marijuana on her person. got her home right away. Well, because, you know, she fits the criteria. You know, she's a woman, I guess. When it's convenient, they can define what a woman is, or at least they can identify one. She's black, and you know, I mean, my goodness, she's a basketball player. So, you know, I guess whatever that box that checks for people. But somehow she gets home right away. But the guy that President Trump brought home was left languishing. That President Trump just got home was left languishing. And notice when he talked about his being home now, the Democrats didn't even stand to celebrate his arrival home, because they don't care about people. They just don't. The only reason they care about you or anybody else is if you help them to fulfill their agenda, or they'll pretend that they care about you if they can put you in one of their victim classes and basically use you to say, oh, we're rescuing you and you need to vote for us, you need to support us. So they don't care about black people, but they care about using them for electoral purposes. So serving the people, that's not even on their agenda. It's just not. You know what? I should have had this. Mark Fogel. Mark Fogel. That's who I was thinking of. Mark Fogel. They didn't stand for him. Because he's not black. He's not a woman. He's not being, man, if he'd been, listen, if he had been calling himself Marsha and said he wants to wear a dress, man, the Biden administration would have got him out of there in 2 seconds. Because they would have been a champion the fact that we're very committed to preserving sexual deviancy and confusion. But at any rate, so again, it just proves my point, folks. This is a demonic cult. It is not a political party, and it is certainly not committed to serving the American people. And by the way, speaking of this whole thing of sexual deviancy, I just want to say this as a matter of alert. You all noticed that one of the people who's been arrested for planning to bomb a Tesla dealership, one of Elon Musk's dealerships in Colorado, is a guy. No, wait a minute. You know, I can never figure this stuff out. Forgive me, folks. Because I don't, you know, when you say a transgender man, I guess that means it's a woman. And when you say a transgender woman, I guess that means it's a man. So I think that's the way it works. So they're saying a transgender identifying man. Now this guy looks like a man, but he's in a dress. Okay, yeah. No, well, okay, here we go. A transgender, let's see. Lord, please help us. I mean that. A transgender identifying man, Justin Thomas Nelson, 40, who goes by the name Lucy Grace Nelson. So yeah, he is a man. But he goes by the name Lucy Grace Nelson, was arrested Monday for vandalizing and planting incendiary devices at a Tesla dealership in Loveland, Colorado. I said that to say this. I pointed this out to say this. I've identified this before. I've mentioned this. Let me not even use the word identify, because that word is incendiary. But I pointed this out before. There's something in the psyche of these people that lends itself toward a violent acting out. And you might say, well, that's a little unfair. You've mentioned 2 or 3 people, but think about the small number of these gender rebellious, confused people there are. Think about the small number there are and how often we see them involved in violent activity. I mean, what are they? I've heard less than 0.1% overall, which is amazing that we're talking about them so much. But of course, they're inserting themselves into every possible aspect of American life because they demand that American life be as perverse as they are, or as sick as they are, because that's what it is. It's sick. Watch your six. I mean it, folks. Because I think wherever you are taking a stand against this stuff, whether it's for the protection of children or whatever, if you are doing that in any kind of public setting, or you're doing that in any kind of situation where attention is being drawn to it, whether you're alone or in a group, watch yourself. Because I really believe that these people are, first of all, they're demon possessed. Okay? They are demon possessed. And demons have no moral code. There's nothing beneath them. There's nothing they won't do. I mean, my goodness, they rebelled against God in heaven. You think they're not going to rebel against human authority? You think they won't try to hurt people, kill people here? I mean, if you're dumb enough to try to overthrow God, what do you think once they get a hold of a human being, what do you think is beneath them? Nothing. Nothing is beneath them. And I think that's why we're seeing the level of violence that we're seeing coming out of this community. Because that's the demonic influence that we're seeing, which is why also you only see Democrats decrying violence when it doesn't seem to support their agenda. But if it supports their agenda, like this stuff that's going on right now with these Tesla plants, you see them bobbing and weaving and dancing and justifying and even people calling themselves journalists. Just keep in mind that the President of the United States has said protesting against a car dealership is now an act of domestic terrorism. Well, he never said that. And it's not. You can protest anything you want in America, and I support your right to do so. But when you start destroying the man's property, when you start planting bombs, when you start setting things on fire, when you start threatening people, that is not protest. That is domestic terrorism. So I just want you to keep that in mind. I'm very serious about that because I think that's going to be a source of ongoing problems in terms of the rule of law, in terms of maintaining order in our communities as these folks begin to act out as they are prone to do because of the demonic influence that is driving them forward. Now, having said that, let me just talk a little bit about, and I got a lot of things. Oh my goodness, I can't believe how much time has gone by already. Well, then let me try to get to this quickly. Have you all heard of Chloe Cole? I've heard of her. It's been a while since I've seen anything of her, but she's apparently doing the circuit now. She is a detransitioner. She was placed into a transition conveyor belt when she was 12 years old. They primed her and prepped her for 3 years, and then they cut off her breasts at the age of 15 years old. She realized shortly thereafter that she was a woman and that all the stuff that she was believing was wrong, all the stuff that adults had encouraged her to believe was wrong. And now she is a woman. She realizes that God made her to be a woman. I think she's saved, as a matter of fact, that God made her to be a woman. And but she realizes, too, she'll never be able to breastfeed any children that she has. I don't think she had herself operated on in that way so that she can't have children. I don't think. But she'll never be able to breastfeed those children. She realizes she has made a drastic alteration of her body that can never be reversed. And if I'm not mistaken, she actually sued people, and maybe those suits are still pending, over having misled her as a minor to do things. genitalia removed and this girl have her breast removed, they're going to commit suicide. She said she was scarred. She bled for a long time. I mean, basically, she suffered to do this only to realize that she had made the worst mistake of her life. And adults facilitated the process. But I had this epiphany today. You know, the people who are doing this stuff, who are doing this to children and pushing doing this to children, are as crazy as the people who want to do it to themselves. They're just as crazy. Because look, if somebody came to you and said, you know what? I know something that most human beings don't know. Oh, really? What's that? There are pink elephants all around us. And, they'll give you red lollipops if you ask them. And you said, wait a minute. Wait a minute. And just as you were about to say, there are no pink elephants around you, and they don't, and those imaginary pink elephants don't have any lollipops. As you were about to say that, the government comes along and says, wait a minute. Wait. You are about to mis-elephant this person, and that is against the law. You can't do that. You must affirm the pink elephants in the room, and you must affirm the red lollipops that they're giving out. And if you don't do that, we're going to punish you. We're going to take away your job. We're going to destroy your business. We're going to destroy your reputation. We're going to call you an anti-pink elephant person. We're going to tell the whole world what a wicked, nasty, narrow-minded person you are, because you are denying this person his or her identity. How dare you? Really? No, the person's nuts. Well, no, the person's not nuts. The person's seeing the truth. That's their truth. And you have got to submit to their truth too. You have got to affirm their truth. And if your child is seeing those pink elephants and you don't see them, and you're not agreeing with the red lollipops that the pink elephants are giving out, we're going to take your child from you and put your child with a parent who says, you know what? I see the pink elephants too. And I've licked on the lollipops too. Because you're a bad parent. I mean, that, folks, that's the equivalent of what they're doing. Or somebody says, I got two green men on my shoulder. And one is named Bob and one is named Bill. And I tell you what, Bob and Bill have the wisdom of the ages, and they're talking to me all the time. And you can see them, right? And you say, first of all, no, there are no little green men on your shoulder. And there's no Bob or no Bill sitting there. Oh, yes, they are. You know what? They're aliens. They came from the planet Krypton, out in the, Oshkosh galaxy, and they flew here on a magic rocket ship, and they landed on my shoulders. and they're here to serve me and to serve humanity. All we have to do is listen to them. And you say, well, wait a minute, let me tell you. And along comes the government and says, but wait a minute, wait. What are you, some kind of anti-little green men person? You have to affirm that those green men are sitting on their shoulders. And you have to affirm where they came from and affirm the wisdom that they dispense to us. And if you don't do that, we're going to take your job, we're going to destroy your business, we're going to destroy your reputation. And if your child's got little green men standing on their shoulder and you don't affirm those little green men, we're going to take your child from you and put your child with a family that says, we see the little green men too. Folks, that's what this is the equivalent of. This is affirming madness. It's affirming mental illness. It's affirming insanity. It's affirming a kind of psychosis. It's affirming a malignant delusion. and punishing anybody who won't affirm the delusion. You know, the Bible speaks of this, says that God gave them up to strong delusion to believe the lie. I believe that's the 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. To believe the lie. I mean, and Romans chapter 1 does the same thing. That, you know, thinking themselves to be wise, they became fools. This is deep spiritual deception. It's demonic deception, and they want to punish you and me for. And by the way, they hate Chloe Cole too for saying it was wrong. I should have never been told that. She was asked, I think, by Ainsley Earhart, what would you wanted people to say to you? He said that what they should have said to me is, you know, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are beautiful just as you are. You are handsome just as you are. You don't need to change your body. And then began to treat me for the delusion that I was under. Began to help me understand that that was just my brain playing tricks on me. Instead, they took the knife to the poor girl and mutilated her body. So, folks, this stuff has got to end. Okay, look, in the time I've got left, with all of this, again, this crazy stuff is still going on, we know. And you got places like Minnesota with Tim Walz out there pushing this stuff with everything he's got, pushing it. That, you know, we need to have more children operated on. We need to have more children mutilated. We are still in a major cultural battle. President Trump right now is the commander-in-chief, but he can't do this alone. And you and I have got to be fully involved. By the way, you know, I've mentioned this before with all this stuff. They say that, particularly in New York, but other places as well, liberals are going to see shrinks now because they're trying to figure out how to deal with all the anxiety that has been produced by the Trump victory. We'll see here again. Even they acknowledge these people are mentally ill. I mean, they're not morally confused about, well, let's put it this way. I say they're morally ill because they really do believe good is evil and evil is good. But they're emotionally and mentally warped. Maybe I should put it that way. Because I don't mean they're mentally ill in the sense that they can't do the job that they have to go to work and do if they happen to work every day, or that they can't drive a car, but they're really mentally and emotionally warped. And even they are reaching out for help, but they don't realize the help they need is not how to get over Donald Trump. The help they need is how to get over themselves and how to get over the demonic influence that's gripped them. Donald Trump is doing some, I mean, folks, I've said this before. I will say it again because it bears repeating. You can say what you want about Donald Trump. You can nitpick in the way he talks. You can nitpick some of the things he says and all that. But the reality is the hand of God is on Donald Trump. God is using Donald Trump. God is protecting Donald Trump. God is guiding Donald Trump. I mean that, folks. I mean that. You see it at every turn. And don't get me wrong. I believe Donald Trump is a gifted businessman and a gifted negotiator. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that Donald Trump is an extraordinarily talented man. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, and really, in some ways, he is genius. Now, I don't mean, you know, well, I guess every genius is genius in some way, right? I mean, they're not necessarily a genius at everything. But I think when it comes to negotiation, when it comes to business, when it comes to organization, I think Donald Trump really is a genius. I really do. And God has plucked him up and is using him to help save our country. Now look at this, folks. Who would have thought this? Gas prices down. The man's only been in office for 6 weeks. Gas prices down. Egg prices. Remember, everybody was talking about the price of eggs? Egg prices down 15%. And he's been able to accomplish that in just the last few weeks. Remember, we were having an egg shortage and bird flu and all that, and they were trying to sell people selling eggs for per egg as opposed to by the dozen. Egg prices are now down. Gas prices are now down. Inflation down to 2.8%. When we were operating with inflation at the highest rate we've seen it in 40 years. At one point, it had gotten up to about 9%. And now we're still suffering from that because the prices of things have gone up 20 and 30 and 40%, folks. I personally felt it and seen it. Some of these particularly big ticket items, I think I told you all, I was looking at replacing one of our heating and air conditioning units. And the first time I inquired about it, it was $8,000. The next time I inquired about it, it was $12,000. The next time I inquired about it, it was about $14,000. I mean, that's almost double the price in a matter of, maybe about 2 or 3 years under Joe Biden. And really, it's the thing is, it's very simple, and you don't have to have a PhD in economics, which I don't, to understand this. When you print money like there's no tomorrow, which is what Joe Biden did, you are asking for the Weimar Republic to return. You are asking for people to have to go to the supermarket with a basket full of money to bring out a small bag of groceries. And that's almost what Biden was leading us to. Because every time we went to the supermarket, we were just kind of sticker shock. What? This was $1 less last week. Inflation down to 2.8%. And guess what? As of yesterday, I think today maybe, because the stock market is suffering because of all these tariffs. And now the stock market is on the rise again because they're seeing the good news. And the stock market is responding. See, this is why I've said, folks, all this consternation about the tariffs. And by the way, a part of what's bringing down inflation, first of all, he's moved aggressively to make sure that our energy resources in the United States can be drilled for, mined for. He is opening up, once again, our economy to utilize the natural resources that God has gifted America to have. Drill, baby, drill. That's numero uno. Second, he has reduced all of these regulations, once again, going about to reduce regulations, which increase the cost of everything, because the more regulations you have, the more you have to pay in order to basically matriculate anything through the bureaucracy of the federal government. Okay? So he has done that. And people have been complaining and said, but these tariffs are going to reverse that. These tariffs are going to reverse that. Look, he imposed tariffs in his first administration. We had inflation down around 1.5%. I really believe that what these tariffs are going to do, and they're talking about we may suffer short term. I don't believe that even that's going to happen. I'm willing to deal with that, but I don't believe that's going to happen, because I think here's what's going to happen. I think you're going to have so many businesses coming back to the United States of America, and so much of our manufacturing being restored to our country, and so much of the goods and services that are provided to us emanating and originating from right here in the continental United States, that we're going to see the prices of goods and services reduced anyway, because all those shipping costs and all those tariff costs are not going to affect us. But what they're going to do is stop other countries from taking advantage of us. So I'm willing to give the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, the benefit of the doubt in this, because again, you look at the achievements so far. They are astounding. I mean, that's why I say God is in this. Because everything they try to do to Donald Trump redounds to his benefit. It works out better for him. So there's no question we are witnessing something of an historic nature. My major concern about all of this is that it be permanent, that it be enshrined in our laws and our culture. You know, you heard, I've said this before too, so forgive me when I do this, because I want you all to be aware that I know I'm repeating myself, but I've said this before. I want to see the ideas that the left is espousing, you know, that government is the answer to everything. Kill as many unborn babies as you want, it's a good thing. Operate on young children and change their gender because, after all, it's not fixed and God didn't make them the way they're supposed to be. I even heard a conservative refer to the gender you were assigned. You weren't assigned a gender. You were born a gender. And you can't change it. It's assigned, the gender you were assigned. It's not assigned, it's born. You're born a gender. I wasn't assigned a man or a male. I was born a male. Man, we conservatives have got to watch buying into their language, because their language is deadly. It's poisonous. And it really tricks the mind to going along with what they really want to do by following their vocabulary. But all these pernicious ideas, I want the idea that race is sort of the be-all and end-all. And let's face it, folks, this is really what they're saying. All quote-unquote people of color, which is a complete nonsense term. It is a nonsense term. But whatever that means, I guess, and what they really mean by that, anybody who doesn't identify themselves as white. Because it really has nothing to do with the color of one's skin. Because I know people who consider themselves black, and they're lighter than some people I know who would consider themselves or be considered by others to be white. So they're not talking about that. It's a political term that is simply meant to divide us. But anyway, here's what all people of color are victims. And all white people are their oppressors. And what do they mean by white people? I guess primarily what they mean by white people is people of European ancestry, but what they really mean is people of European ancestry who do not hold to their leftist ideology. That's what they really mean. Because you see, if you hold to their leftist ideology, you are exempt. See, I'm convinced that's why a lot of these entrepreneurs have jumped on the leftist bandwagon, because they get a pass. They get a pass for being white. Because if you're financing the Democrat agenda, you're financing the leftist agenda, even though you're white, you're still all right. We like you anyway. I mean, folks, yeah, that's how sick that is. I mean, George Soros is about as white as it gets from their perspective, because the man collaborated with the Nazis. And I'm not making it up. He did. He's admitted it. And he's unrepentant about it. He said, well, if it hadn't been me, it'd have been somebody else. And when I say collaborated, I mean he actually went around and collected the property of Jews that they were taking property from, preparing them for the gas chamber. He participated in that. His father arranged it, apparently. I guess his father was prominent. And I mean, even though what George Soros is supposed to be Jewish, well, somehow his father arranged that he would be able to collaborate with the Nazis. I guess that was the price they were willing to pay to save their lives. I've read interviews where the man says, well, if it hadn't been me, it'd have been somebody else. I mean, unrepentant. But I tell you what, the left loves him, because he writes those big checks for them. George, it's okay for you to be white, buddy, because you're a good white man. I mean, folks, this stuff is sick. It is sick. The only thing, and this is the country we want, the only thing we want to evaluate people on the basis of is their character, their competence, their talent, their ability, their willingness to work hard, to uphold the standard of excellence. I mean, those things that go into shaping that person's relationship with the world at large and what they can contribute to it. That's all. That's all that matters. But oh, no. In the world of the Democrat, in the world of the leftist, no. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is the color of your skin. The only thing that matters is which of the 157 genders there are do you choose to call yourself, or, well, wait a minute, I forgot. And then there's none. You could be a none. You are no gender. You know, they have that kind. You're non-binary, which means you don't have a gender. So, you know, if you fit into one of those categories, or you're a woman, and again, somehow you can be a woman even though there's no difference between men and women, but when it's convenient, you can be a woman, and as a woman, you deserve certain privileges, special treatment, because you're oppressed by men. Of course, it's okay though for a biological man to compete against you in sports, because that biological man is not a man once he says he's a woman. Now, you know, if I believed any of this stuff, folks, just put me in the loony bin. And anybody who believes all this stuff, that's where they belong, because it's utterly insane. Well, thank God we've got a president now who understands that. Joe Biden not only did not understand it, he was that. He became the personification of that. The personification of all the insanity that the Democrat Party has now embraced. He became the personification of it. You know, in one sense, his cognitive decline was emblematic of the whole Democrat Party, which in my view has suffered a kind of cognitive decline because they're incapable of thinking straight. They just can't do it anymore. Whoopi Goldberg says, you know, we're assuming that, oh, these women athletes are so weak. I mean, they can't compete with these. I don't know whether she wants to call them biological males. But again, that is so utterly ignorant. It is not that we think women are weak or that anybody thinks women are weak. Sports is always a competition, a comparison. I mean, think about this. And I got to go. I'm going over. That's why you don't have a featherweight boxing a heavyweight in professional sports. Because the inherent physiological difference means that the featherweight's likely to get killed in there. You don't put those two together. You have heavyweights boxing heavyweights. You have light heavyweights boxing light heavyweights, and middleweights boxing middleweights, because you want them to be relatively close to one another in size and weight. Well, women, I hate to inform these Democrats, are not close to men in size and weight. Period. Sure, there are exceptions, of course. There are little men and big women, of course. But that's not the norm. That's not the average. And even when men and women are the same size, the data shows, the science shows, men have a larger lung capacity than women. Men have a larger respiratory capacity than women. Men have musculature that women do not have. That's just the way God designed us. Women can compete quite adequately against women, but that's why you see men who are mediocre when competing against other men suddenly declare themselves women, go over to compete with women, and suddenly they're breaking all the women's records. I wonder why. And I got to go. But listen, God bless each and every one of you. I love you. Oh, my goodness, folks. Please don't forget our Stand Awards dinner coming up on May the 16th. Here are our honorees. Tina Deskovich of Moms for Liberty, Robert L. Woodson of the Woodson Center, Kevin D. Freeman of Liberty Hawk Ranch and the Economic War Room, which is seen on Blaze. Stacy Washington, Stacy on the right, she's on Sirius Radio. Walter Hoy, Issues for Life, one of the pro-life leaders of our country. Please put it on your calendar. Go to our website, standamerica.us. Buy a ticket, sponsor, make a contribution. This is our most important fundraiser of the year. We wouldn't survive without this, folks. We need your help. So pray for us, support us in whatever way you can. Thank you so much. God bless you. You know what to do. Stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. I think Donald Trump is proving that every day, because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.